welcome to our recurring TELx Council meeting. These recurring meetings provide several critical functions to our governance, provide transparency to our community, create structure for our forum, provide authors the ability to present their proposals to the Council and community, allows the Council and community to review, debate and refine these proposals so they can get to a place where we have consensus and mutual understanding. They also provide a medium for regular TELx ecosystem updates, ensure consistent communication between Council members and the community, allows the community to directly engage in Q&A with the Council members. The TELx Council is a local governance organisation with authority over and duties towards TELx operational rules, system health and social well-being. The overview accepts, develops and votes on TELx IPs to change or introduce new elements to TELx, to alter TELx harvesting rules, and is responsible for generally representing the interests of and informing their constituency in matters pertaining to TELx. The duties: the TELx Council is required to 1. Plan, finance and coordinate implementation of improvements to the TELx system. 2. Regulate the flow of TEL issuance throughout TELx to be harvested by liquidity miners. 3. It introduces, alters and enforces TELx operational rules, including harvesting, information, communication, maintenance and construction. 4. Informs miners of the activities and outcomes related to TELx and results from any snapshot votes. These snapshot votes are a requirement for all Council members, and in order for a proposal to move forward, there needs to be a 5 out of 6 majority vote, and all 6 members voting within 5 days from the start of it posting to snapshot. Now, would anybody else like to recap the meeting, or will I just continue?
Doing a great job, Ty. If you want to keep going, then just go up with the recap, and then maybe we can pass it off to Mike to start talking about some of those TELx IPs that we had in our TELx Council chat with base and the deprecating of pools and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. It's given me time to get a little bit of a cup of coffee here. Okay. So last meeting, apart from the 2 recaps, which was the Council objectives I've just read and the recap of the last meeting, I gave a brief update on the SAP proposal, which I added a little bit on Leo's advice just to say the Compliance Council required some input into it. I wasn't, well, sorry, I'll give you this update later. Andrew talked about the various phases in his proposal, and he's also waiting on the TAO to get back to us. Mike, we talked about moving TEL to ETH on base, and he set up the pool. Information's now been sent to BaseScan, and I asked him to give me some links so that I could do a little bit of exploring on base. We had a discussion about exploring on base. We mentioned the allotment of the 200 million TEL which was for development, and the actual process to follow. And I noticed there's a multi-sig proposal out there now on signing that for the safe. We talked about multi-change, and the biggest concern I think that a couple of us had were, are we opening ourselves to exploits and reputational damage by putting ourselves out on different chains? So that's always a consideration. And then there was a little bit of a mention about talking to Grant and Amir about what happens next on mainnet, what happens to TELx and what the impact of that is. and I think that was it. There was no real Q&A from the community. So yeah, that's more or less the recap of last meeting. So if we move now on to the agenda for this meeting, then we can work through that today. Okay, thanks guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Ty. Appreciate it. I was just going to mention too, it looks like Grant posted in the TELx Council chat just updates for me and you, Ty, just on the proposals that we got. So it sounds like next week we'll have a little bit more of an update in terms of hours required for each of those proposals and kind of get an understanding of kind of the costs associated to that. And we know through the year 2 budget allocations that there was another 10 million awarded to the TELx Council for those kind of specific projects, along with the other ones that we'll be discussing today. So just an update on those two. It's really we'll have a little bit more of an understanding by the next call, which will be early in March. So yeah, Mike. Yeah, go ahead, Ty. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good. The latest from Leo was I'm waiting on him to review and to produce more of a technical spec so we can nail down the estimates more accurately. But he's been overrun with stuff, so he'll it's on his list, but I haven't had anything firm back from him yet, or had a review of the tech spec or anything like that. So it's work in progress, but it's on the back burner really, because I think your proposal was more important than the SAP one.
Well, I wouldn't say more important, maybe just a little bit easier to complete. But like I was going to mention too, like the conversation that Grant and I were having as well was around kind of the website and the design and the implementation of some of these other things too. And does it make sense to, do each adjustment to the website individually, or do we try to figure out what we want to do through all these protocols and proposals now that we're talking about, different chains, deprecating pools and all this kind of stuff? We've talked about the website needing kind of a revamp. So do we collectively try to put everything together with what we want to do with the revamp for the website and kind of get it all done at once, which might be a little bit more efficient, not only for, our funds and our budget, but from a timing perspective too, so that we're not having a lot of different iterations of the website. Every time liquidity miner comes onto the website, this month, next month, month after, like it's always looking different. So maybe it's best to try to put all of the needs specific to the website together, so that we can collectively work on it as one kind of project and do it all at once, just for efficiency's sake.
Yeah. It's difficult in a quickly changing environment, obviously. Maybe we should just have a forward on the website that says, some parts are out of date, under new construction, that sort of thing.
Yeah, maintenance or whatever terminology you want to use. That's fine with me.
Not to bring it down. Yeah, not to bring it down, just to inform any new users that there's improvements on the way.
Yep. I'm fine with that. Okay. Yeah, so I guess next would be maybe either Mike or Will, whoever wants to go first. I know, Will, we were kind of talking about getting the TELx Treasury safe going, just to allocate specific funds for budgets and whatnot. And we'll have the TELx safe that is going to be specific for incentives to incentivize the ecosystem. Or if Mike, you want to jump up and chat about what's going on with base. I know we talked about Uniswap v3, v4, and kind of the two proposals that you've got going to deprecate a couple pools and allocate those incentives to different chains, different pools. So I'll open it up to whoever wants to chime in, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I guess the problem we have with the TELx Council is that we have many ideas to improve the TELx ecosystem, but we don't have a budget for it, and we're supposed to finance everything with the yearly issuance we get from the treasury, from the general treasury. So my proposition was to create a safe, so we could take a part of this yearly issuance to finance all the projects we have. So I wrote a proposal. It's only a draft at the moment. I was hoping you guys could give me a review on it. Unfortunately, no one found the time to do it. But I guess it's not really important the way we write it. It's just, in a sense, it would be a good thing to take a part of our yearly issuance to fund the projects we have. So the proposition would be to create a multi-signature wallet. I thought it would be a good idea to make it a 5 out of 6 multi-sig. It would mimic the quorum we need to reach for a proposal to pass. So we need to have 5 council members approve a proposal for it to pass. So I guess a 5 out of 6 multi-sig wallet makes sense. And the idea would be to take 10% of our yearly issuance. We know that it will the issuance will evolve from year to year depending on what's left in the general treasury. So I guess our proposal was to take 10% of it to allocate funds to our different projects. I guess we can discuss on the numbers, see if it's enough, see if it's far too much because of TELx price evolution. And yeah, that's it basically.
Well, did it state in there like when that would start? Because I know we got that 10 million issuance for year 2. Like I'm assuming with that proposal to take 10% out, that would start for year 3, correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, we were supposed to take it starting from year 2, but then we learned that we would be allocated 10 million TEL from the year 2 issuance from the treasury wallet. So the proposition is to start on year 3 and take 10% of what we'll get at the beginning of year 3 to fund our operations.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Like I think 10% is probably good for now to get started. Like again, we're all pretty new at this, and with everything, kind of getting started, I feel like expenses are probably going to be a little bit higher in the earlier years as we kind of develop, change, and adjust things kind of on the fly. And maybe when we get into years, 5, 6, 7, kind of like that, maybe it's possible that we adjust that downward to 5%. I guess we'll play that by year and see how year over year that goes. And I think we discussed too that any budget that is left over in any particular year will get rolled over into to the next year's allocation as well. So if an example, we keep the 200 million TEL allocation from the treasury going, we have 20 million TEL to use for year 3, so to speak, but we only use 15 out of it, then that 5 billion will roll into year 4. And then add in the 10%, which again, just simplicity would be another 20. Then essentially for year 4, we would have a budget of 25. So I think that makes sense for now until we get a better understanding. But what does everybody else think about that? I think this one's pretty straightforward in my opinion, though. I don't know if Mike or Tim, you guys are talking, but I see the mutes are off, but we can't hear you guys. So I don't know if you guys are on the push to talk again.
Yeah, sorry.
We had that meeting last week or on the weekend there, but
yeah, I'm on the push to talk. Sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed as well. So just to get this right, we need to wait to the start of year 3, which will be this time next year, won't it?
Year 3 will technically start, I think it's at the end of December or early January. It all,
Yeah.
like if you look at the date of when TGIP1 was finalized, that would have been end of January. So that's kind of when the years start. So it's almost on
Yeah.
calendar. So we've got, a couple months already into year 2. So.
Yeah.
But
So
we'll have
are we happy to wait that long before getting that 10%, or do we not need that earlier?
Well, we've got the 10 million coming in fairly soon, the extra issuance from the TAO.
Yeah, with that 10 million, I think let's see how far that goes and what work is needed. Like we're still waiting, like I said at the start of the meeting, from grants to get an understanding of what the developmental hours and associated costs are going to be for those proposals. Again, Mike with his 2 proposals, there's going to be a little bit of development work getting the deprecation of those pools done, setting up new contracts on different chains. So we got to understand like what the cost is there. I'd say let's continue to use that 10 million as our base for now, and then if we need to allocate more resources, then let's have that conversation down the road. But also keep in mind, guys, that we have the ability to put a proposal forward to get additional funding from the Treasury if needed, right? So we don't necessarily have to use from ours. I think at the end of the day, starting in year 3, that is the goal, is to do that 10% and fully fund TELx ecosystem from that budget. But because this is all kind of new, I think for us for now, let's start with that 10 million, see how far it gets us. And if we need additional funds, then let's have that conversation. But know that we can still put a proposal forward to get additional funding from the Treasury down later in the year if needed.
Okay, so we should have enough for now, is what we're saying.
That would be my assumption. Yes, I'd say let's not think about how much more we need until we're getting close to using it up.
Sorry, can I interject here? There's two. I think there's 2 elements to Will's proposal. There's the setting up of the safe, which requires, well, he's proposing 5 out of 6 signatories. But the 10 million that we get, does that not go into the safe as a development budget that we can then spend? So we've got the issuance factor, the 10% from issuance that we're taking at the beginning of year 3. But if the multi-sig wallet is part of the proposal, then do we not need that for the 10 million development that's coming in now?
So that 10 million is going to be on top of the 200 that we already have, right? So technically we have 210 million right now, and that 10 will be allocated. Like we'll have to likely move it once the safe is, up and running. And if we have to pay any costs to get that safe up and running, then that'll just come out of that 10 million. And then whatever the balance is, we'll transfer that to the new TELx Treasury safe.
Yeah, so the idea is to set up the safe as quickly as possible to get those 10 millions in the safe, and then starting from year 3, get 10% of the issuance.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the question I had about the proposal, Will, was, I understand the sentiment 5 out of 6, but is that not too many? Could we reduce it to maybe 3 out of 6?
Yeah, sure. I guess I thought 5 out of 6 was only natural because of the mimetism with the 5 out of 6 majority vote for the proposals. But I guess 3 out of 6 would work just as fine. Yeah.
I mean, I was just thinking of expediency and organising people, and I mean, the whole point of multi-sig is to stop any collusion going on. So I'm happy with whatever, but I just thought 5 out of 6, since the proposal would have been approved anyway for the withdrawal of the money, then it's just a mechanic thing that the SIG.
Yeah, I think I'm okay if we wanted to do 3 out of 6. just to that point, if there ever is a problem with technical issues and whatnot, then we kind of get stuck by needing 5 out of 6. I'm okay with 3 if everybody's aligned with that.
Yeah, I guess that's fine, and I don't think it's a major issue. We should be discussing. Let's just do it as fast as possible.
Yeah, 3's fine. In normal councils and committees, it's probably only 2 for signatories for things like that. So, 3's enough. I would say even 2 would be enough.
Yeah, okay, let's go with 3 out of 6 then.
Okay, good. Matt, Mike, you guys have any comments on this one before we move on to the next one?
None for me right now. I'm okay. I'm in support of what you guys are, where we're going with this. So.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so Will, I guess next step is to formally post it to the forum, and let's just let the community, review. And if anybody has any questions, then we can do that. Maybe we'll leave it up for a week or so, and then we can put that to snapshot, or do you guys want to try to push that to snapshot sooner?
Yeah, I guess we could post it on the forum and let the community read it for a few days before posting it directly to Snapshot. So I guess I'll post it. Let's say maybe not tomorrow, but maybe during the weekend or early next week.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Yeah, so let's get it to Snapshot before our next meeting at least, just so we can keep the ball rolling on this one.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll try to post it tomorrow, and so we can push it to Snapshot next Friday or something, so it can be passed before the next meeting.
Okay, I like it. Good stuff. Okay, cool. Mike, you want?
Yeah.
You want?
Hear me now?
We can hear you, buddy. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. I've been having I was having a little trouble there for a second. Okay. Sorry, I have been trying to comment to your questions along the way, but it was like I felt like I was screaming into a vacuum. So I disconnected and reconnected. That seemed to work. But okay, so yeah, so my 2 proposals. I kind of ramped up the proposal rather just doing 1 at a time, just to do 2 off the bat. One I'll refer to as the base proposal, and the second will be the Polygon proposal. The base proposal first is a proposal to incentivize liquidity on base network in a TEL and Ethereum pool, a V3 or V4 pool on Uniswap. V4 is the latest iteration from Uniswap and is widely considered to be an improvement over V3 for gas efficiency, the ability to use hooks, which are a little bit beyond my technical knowledge, but apparently it adds value. And V4 Uniswap is what the engineers for Telcoin will be building liquidity on for Telcoin network. And so in order to maintain synergy going forward and to launch a pool on the most up-to-date version, I thought V4 would be the most appropriate. It does not pull into some of the Gecko terminals and things like of the world yet, V4 pools, but I'm sure that's coming very shortly because a lot of pools are starting to migrate to V4. So I'm not too worried about that. I think we just want to build it to be future-proof so we don't have to move things in the future. So the point of the liquidity pool on base is to increase our surface area and exposure to new markets, new users, and people that do not have or do not know how or have really access to the TEL token because they operate on Base or Coinbase Wallet or whatever it may be. And while everybody knows that you can access TEL if you're savvy enough, we just want to make sure that we access one of the highest volume networks highest network EVMs on the market right now in Base. And we would like to incentivize a pool to sort of bootstrap liquidity over there as soon as possible. A pool has been developed, a V4 pool. There was also a V3 pool. One of those pools was contributed to by the game company and others. There's a couple other folks, myself and a couple other folks included, that have started to push a little bit of liquidity over to Base. There is some activity over there. We have been working with BaseScan to get the token updated on BaseScan. So now you can see the logo on BaseScan, but it still has an unknown status, which we're working on now. There was a little bit of a mix-up. Were they saying that Telcoin did a rebranding from telco.in to telcoin.org, and saying and wanting us to have a longer history with Telcoin to verify that Telcoin is a real. They're just a little bit confused, the folks at BaseScan, on who Telcoin is, and so we're clearing up the discrepancies momentarily. Hopefully, we'll have that sort of sorted by the end of the week or early next. At which point we should be able to search the Telcoin token in the search field on Uniswap. Right now, that is sort of the limiting factor. To provide more liquidity is that the token is not visible in that TELx pool. However, that's sort of irrelevant to the conversation here today, which the proposal, that will all get sorted out, but the proposal is to incentivize liquidity there with deprecation of the TELDFX USDC pool, which has long been an underperforming pool. There is not much volume. There's certainly no volume driven by the DFX token into that pool. Doesn't offer our users much utility in the form of added liquidity or price execution because there's not much trading going on with DFX. And in fact, sort of the history of TELx, a lot of you guys have been around for a long time, is that, in the early days, pools needed to be created to swap one token to the other. And that you would go onto Balancer and you would swap one token for the other. And if there was enough liquidity there, you could get good price execution. This is sort of in the early days, or even before aggregators sort of kind of took over the market, and all the price efficiency of the aggregators has made pooling assets together, small market cap assets together, doesn't really make any sense. Because most data is, even the Telcoin app, is aggregated, and the price efficiency is gathered from multiple pools, from the largest pools on the network. So I think that, having said all that, the idea would be to deprecate the DFX pool because it doesn't really provide capital efficiency for trades in-app or on Web3 wallets, whereas a Base pool, while not would not provide increased execution for in-app trades, it would certainly provide a broader base of liquidity for different users across the Base ecosystem, and be helpful to one of our new partners, the game company, and various others that that will be coming online with Telcoin being on Base. So the that is sort of the nuts of the Base proposal. If you guys believe that this is a good idea, I'd just like to get some comments. If there's any questions about it from the community, if we have, but I'd like to sort of push this forward to a council proposal so that we may initiate these changes within the coming month. I believe we could get this done by the end of March to align development and incentives and deprecation to be done by the end of next month, and then. In the meantime, we can start to, advertise the liquidity on Base, in much the way that we've advertised liquidity on mainnet with Andrew's pinch power, I call it. But like, people don't, if you don't know of that it exists and the opportunity for yield exists, you don't use it. And when people start seeing that the mainnet pool is averaging yields of 200% APY, then the liquidity has increased from 300,000 to over 1 million. So kudos to you, Andrew. But I think we keep that marching along. But we want to push forward this proposal for the Base TELx IP.
Can I just have one comment here, Mike? I think it's a great initiative. I think we should actually hyphen off the deprecation proposal and get that out there immediately. So at least, because we do have to give 30 days notice, well, I think we've talked about, to the community that this pool will be deprecated and they can withdraw their liquidity. So I think that's worthy of a separate small proposal just to get out there and get approved, get snapshotted really quickly. So at least we've got the funds available for when that your other proposal about how to redistribute the rewards go to base. So I think it's worth splitting the two down. I don't want to get pedantic about it, but I think deprecating DFX is an easy decision for us, and we can just do it, give the notice period to the community and get that done really quickly, while the comments and the rework of your main proposal, which is expanding onto base, which is worthy of probably a little bit more discussion, as you say. So that's my only comment.
I think that they could both be pushed at the same time. To be honest, to be fair, like I think we could probably get this at least a proposal. We're not going to know the exact. We could split it off, just the pool's deprecated. But I think it makes it a whole piece, and it'll be more understandable for consumption for the community and our current TELx providers if we if they have an idea of why we would just be voting to deprecate a pool without the where those incentives will be going. So I feel a little bit differently on that, and I think we could probably move this to vote before the end of the month, which would still give us 30 days before enough notice.
Yeah, either way, I support Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I'd support what Mike's saying. Just so that I think the big thing there is just a clear indication of like, okay, we're going to deprecate this pool, then like we just don't want any incentives being idle, so that if we know that, okay, these incentives are going to be transitioned from, pool A to pool B, then at least we have it all together and it's all tied into one proposal. The one thing I was going to ask Mike too is, did we just want to take the incentives from DFX pool and just incentivize that one pool on base, or do we want to try to broaden the liquidity and have like a TEL ETH and then maybe a TEL USDC pool just to try to broaden liquidity? Like I've never had to move tokens to a different chain before and what that does to the total TVL, but would it make a little bit of sense to maybe split the DFX pool incentives into two new pools, or what do you guys think about that?
I think that could certainly be done. Ultimately, to be fair, and I mentioned to you guys via like a barrage of messages over the weekend. I apologize for that, but I just get thinking about stuff and I start chatting. But is that, I think Balancer is pretty weak, and it's certainly one of the weakest dexes on Polygon, whereas Uniswap is fairly strong. And so anything that we could do to sort of move, in my mind, I would like to sort of get probably all liquidity off of Balancer, like all incentivized liquidity off of Balancer, because I just don't really feel like it provides much. I know it's near to everybody's heart because of impermanent loss reasons and 80-20 pools and all the other stuff, but like really the goal in my mind is to sort of provide the best, the most amount of liquidity at the strike price for swaps and trades, and to make us the most, make our token swapping most competitive and give people the best price execution possible. So yes, I think we should definitely open up multiple pools on base. I don't know how incentives how long they'll be required. If it's any indication of what's going on in the Polygon pools, once we get live on base and people know about us, I think the incentives will be just a drop in the bucket for the total TVL. But yes, we could certainly incentivize it just to sort of get people a little bit extra TEL in their in their wallets for helping us provide liquidity, even if it's only 10% of what they would be getting as fee rewards. So I think that's a great idea.
Hey, I was just gonna. Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, just a quick question. Does Uniswap allow 80-20 pools, or is it all 50-50?
No, so there really isn't even a 50-50. I mean, so you can do 50-50. You can do traditional Uniswap. Even on V4, you can provide full range, where you don't choose your custom range. You provide a 50-50 pool of a TEL on Ethereum or a TEL on USDC. But it also allows you the ability to select your range or concentrate your liquidity. And so you can actually put 100% TEL in, or you can put 100% Ethereum in, but it has to be above or below the price, and it won't be in range. But you could, in theory, like if the price is $1, you could put your range at $1.10, and then once you go into that range, then you would start providing liquidity to that pool. But it gets a little bit complicated. It's worth like diving into a little bit on your own to understand it a little bit better, what concentrated liquidity is. But you can put any proportion of tokens in that you want, but you're not going to be taking the same proportion out. You could put in 90% TEL and 10% Ethereum and end up with 100% Ethereum when it goes out of range if TEL outperforms Ethereum. And so it's just a little bit different way of thinking about liquidity provision. So I don't know if that answers your question, but they don't have an 80-20 set structure where it doesn't change.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I did look at that link you gave me, and I thought I need more education. I need some more background on it, on exactly that concentrated liquidity and how it all works. So yeah, thanks, Mike. That does answer the question.
Okay, so if I can jump in briefly to try to tell you what V3 is basically if you provide liquidity to a range between 1 and 2 cents for TEL. If TEL's price is below 1 cent, so you're out of range and you're not really providing liquidity. So when the price reaches 1 cent, you start providing liquidity and you start selling your TEL for USDC. If we're saying we're in a TEL USDC pool, right? And so when the price will be 1.5 cents, you'll basically have half of your TEL that is sold for USDC. So you will be 50-50. And then if the price is 1.75, you will have 25% TEL and 75% USDC. And when it reaches 2 cents, because that's your upper range, then you are 100% in USDC and above, you're not providing liquidity anymore. So it's just a way of saying, okay, so I'll sell my TEL from this price to this price. And when it reaches your upper bound, then you sold all your TEL and you're basically 100% in the other token.
Yeah, that's correct. And, so it does allow, if you think about it from a flexibility of ownership perspective, it allows a ton of flexibility where you can do whatever you want, but also allows you to sort of systematically program and programmatically liquidate from one token to the other in that way that you just described, where you could say, like, my financial goals, like I would like to peel off some TEL for USDC as it goes from 2 cents to 3 cents. So I'm going to set my range. I'm just going to supply some TEL in that 2 to 3 cent range versus USDC. And as long as it's standing in that range, I'm making some extra income in fees and fee volume while it's between those two numbers. And then if it goes out of those ranges, then I own one or the other of the assets. But so it just allows a lot of interesting flexibility for providers, and that's why Uniswap is so popular. It's not necessarily designed for people that want to like hold on to their biggest bag of Telcoin, but it is a way to use that token as a income generation tool and to customize it to whatever your specific needs or financial goals might be.
And you can change the range mid-range. So if you wanted to slide your range up is TEL appreciated in value against USDC, you could move it from 1.5 to 2.5 in Will's example?
Yeah, so you can move the range, you can change the range, you don't have to, you can have multiple concentrated liquidity positions, Ty. So you could have one, and then you could create another one, and you could create a third one, and you can create a fourth one. And so you can sort of hedge around the token price depending upon what you want to do again. But you don't just have to be in or out, where you could create any number, dozens of different combinations within the same pool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what Ty was asking is like, can you switch, one range to the other? Which, like, once you provide liquidity, I know, Matt, we've been talking about this because I've been playing around with it a little bit for the last week or so, but you're not really able to adjust your range. So if you are outside of range and you want to readjust, you need to withdraw that liquidity and then add it back at a new range. So you can't, like, if you're between 1 and 2 and it goes to 2.5 and you want to slide from 2 to 3, you have to actually take out your position at 1 to 2 and then reinvest at 2 to 3, if that's what you want to do. So it's a little bit different in that sense, where obviously the V2 is kind of 0 to infinity, and it's obviously balancing based on the contract percentages that are stipulated in there. But with V3, it's really specific to the range that you set. And when you're outside of that range, like Will mentioned and Mike mentioned, you're not getting any of those fees. But it's not to say that if you hold, say between 1 and 2, and it's hovering in 2.5 for a week, but then it slides back into 1.5 the following week, like at that point you're still going to be back within range. So it really just depends on how you want to do it. But like Mike said, like, I think the strategy is really having multiples and setting up kind of different ones along the curve, and then readjusting as you kind of go in and out of those ranges.
Yeah, and there are programs out there you can do concentrated liquidity management. So people can do that, where you can just say, hey, I have a bullish bias towards this token, and you have these bots that will do all these, move your liquidity around for you. Now that's not going to be for everybody, not even really for me, but there are tons of options. It just opens up optionality for people, and it gives a tremendous amount more of liquidity at or near the strike price of the token, and gives us way better execution on trades. And so that's really important, I think, as we start to build this thing forward. I mean, we're a top 100 cryptocurrency, right? And so I think we need to start thinking about how to increase our liquidity enough so that if somebody wants to trade a couple $100,000 in value in a trade, that they can do that without a 5% price impact. So that's why we want to start increasing liquidity at or around the token price, so that we can start drawing in bigger and bigger fish into the ecosystem.
No, understand. Thanks, guys. That's very helpful.
To answer the question for Joe, I was talking in the comments. I can that base pool LP, I can put in there. There's 2 of them. I'll put the token contract in there. It's still, and then you can put this token contract. That's the Telcoin token contract, and it actually is live on CoinGecko now, which happened yesterday. So now CoinGecko shows our token is live on Base, and the DFX pool, the DFX pool will stay there. You can stay in it forever if you want. There's no dying of the pool, but the incentives will discontinue. That's all. So it doesn't mean that you can't still have your DFX pool. And if DFX starts trading any significant volume down the road, you would do well there. But you don't have to remove your liquidity. You just won't be incentivized to keep it there.
Just before we move on from kind of the base conversation, maybe on to the next one, Mike, for the V3, V4 stuff. I was just thinking while we were talking about it, when you mentioned the game company, maybe we should try to facilitate a conversation with them to see if, maybe there's an opportunity for dual incentives on that pool that they opened up on base. And then maybe that'll be a good little starting point to try to get some liquidity on both of those tokens on base.
Absolutely, yeah. But if you look now, we do have like if you go on to Uniswap and you took our Telcoin token contract, you can actually search it on Uniswap, and it'll pull up Tel. Sadly, right now there's 2 Tel tokens on base on Uniswap. One of them is real and one of them is not. But the Tel token right now you can get, for all you savvy traders out there, you can buy it at 11% discount on base right now. It's trading at 1.0 cents, but there is $320,000 in liquidity locked in Telcoin on base at the moment, and did $16,000 in volume in the last 24 hours. So there is already some activity. There's already 40 holders of Telcoin token on base, up from 1 from a month ago, and there's been over 1,100 transactions with the Tel token on base in the past couple weeks. So I feel like once we get this token listed properly on there, then we'll really start to see those numbers fly. It'll be really fun. I mean, it's kind of a fun thing to do. But if you guys is there any opposition, first of all, to this this proposal?
No, there's no opposition from me. Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
So there's no opposition from me. I was just going to add on that potentially, in addition to the TEL DFX USDC, that we do take a harder look at that TEL BAL, right, and maybe include that one as well. And if we want to take the incentives that we have on that pool, and maybe, Andrew, to your point, double incent a TEL GMRT pool, we could use some of those incentives there too. But I'm fully in support of, and my comments probably alluded to that over the weekend, of dropping the pools that don't work here, moving over to base. Again, increasing that surface area, Mike. I like that term, but these V3 pools, and just to come back to these V3 pools with this concentrated liquidity, I've been messing around with it for the better part of 3 weeks now. They're pretty cool. They're pretty awesome. The way you can come up with different ranges and get as close as you want. Or I guess you can walk a fine line of collecting a lot of fees, but then moving out of range, or expanding that range and reducing your fees. But I think the flexibility of those pools is awesome. Like, I'm really enjoying being in them. So the more we can spread these out and get them on different chains, I'm all for it.
Great, that sounds good, Matt. And to be clear, the other proposal that I have would be to deprecate that Telcoin balancer pool and provide that liquidity. For the proposal would be to provide it to the Tel Ethereum Uniswap pool on Polygon, which is basically the same story I just told. So I'm not going to get all long-winded again because I tend to talk too much. But the second proposal is to deprecate Tel Balancer, and then use those incentives for Tel ETH V4 Polygon, which is doing really well and is a small pool over there, but it is, it already has over 100% average daily yield, and you start to see the efficiency of those pools versus the balancer pools, where they trade 1 point something, greater than the number, where the balancer pools are trading like 0.2% capital efficiency, where Uniswap pools are trading over 1. And so we get a lot more bang for the buck and a lot more liquidity for the amount provided, or a lot more liquidity range. So second proposal is to incentivize Tel Ethereum on Polygon, but welcome and open to other pools to use those incentives for as well.
So, Mike, just a question on the difference between V3, V4. I know we kind of chatted about it over the weekend as well, just whether or not aggregators are plugged into V4 yet, or like they're slowly getting there. I know you mentioned that the development team for Telcoin Network is obviously working on V4, but once we get the Telcoin Network up and running, like we're going to have to migrate that liquidity from whatever chain we're currently on to the Telcoin Network chain, right? So I'm just thinking if it would be more beneficial from a liquidity perspective if we maybe incentivized V3 until the Telcoin Network is up and running. And then when we make that transition to the Telcoin Network, then we could also make that transition to V4. Does that make sense?
I think, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to just share with you this stat. We do have two pools right now on Polygon. There one that is V4 and one that is V3. I don't know exactly what the ranges are. You know, so it's hard to compare apples to apples, but I don't think there's any difference in aggregation. I do know that the V4 pool currently is providing, you know, is being incented, you know, the yield on that is over 100%, whereas the V3 pool is 64%. Just post that little link to that there. That's just the last 24 hours. But obviously the V4 pool is very small. The V3 pool is very big. I don't know what the ranges are. Some of that might be full range liquidity on V3. I don't really know. Like, you know, it's hard to know. I don't have enough knowledge or savvy to like dig into that and to figure out why those numbers are, you know, different. But I guess my point is that if we're going to go do the technical work to do staking contracts and rewards claims and everything like that, we rather than build it and then rebuild it, I'd just rather build it on the most advanced platform, and then we sort of push the liquidity into that V4 pool, and that will then it can stay there. We don't have to spend the money to go and rework the staking contracts.
Okay, from that perspective, that makes a lot more sense just from a work and budget perspective. Okay, I was just thinking about it solely from the flow and the liquidity, because I know when I was initially looking at it, like there was a decent amount more in V4, but like it was almost basically the same amount of volume going through V3. At the time, I think it only had like $8,000 or $9,000 in liquidity, and it was basically doing the same amount of volume as the V4, which had over 400,000. So I was just looking at it from an efficiency perspective, like you kind of talked about, like that strike price and making sure we're as efficient as possible. But you know, the point about the work involved and all that kind of stuff makes sense to maybe just push things to V4 if that's the way that the future is going to go anyway. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more V3 pools migrating, and there's like when you go into like your V3 pool now, there's a migrate button.
I see that. Yeah. They're pushing you.
Yeah, so that's gonna, by the time we get all this through, I mean, you know, like the new version, you know, it'd be like building on iOS, you know, like 14 or something instead of building on the current platform. I think we just want to start with what's readily available, and that is the most up-to-date version.
I think I'm just thinking through the practicalities now of re-incentivizing these Uniswap pools. It might be worth engaging a good conversation with Amir on exactly what's involved in rechanneling the rewards, because I know we talked about having the rewards based on the fees that are generated because of this in and out of range issue with the V3, V4 setup. But that will probably need to be developed, and it will probably need to be audited before it's released, which will take time. So that's the only point I'm making, that when we're talking about re-incentivizing, deprecating one pool and re-incentivizing another, the timing, I think, is going to be hard to manage because of these external influences that we'll have to work with, such as the redevelopment of the staking contract on a fee-based way, and then having that audited because it's giving rewards to people, and that always needs to be audited. So there is a technical aspect that I think we shouldn't forget about.
That's a good point, Ty. Like Mike, maybe it's possible to talk to the TAL and see if you know, how long getting this set up, and if like April 1 as a target is realistic. And, maybe we tentatively set the target at April 1st. And if we feel, a week or two before that we're not going to hit that target, then maybe we push it out another 30 days or whatever the period is. And instead of starting April 1st, we go to May 1st. But I think that's a good point, Ty, on your end, just to make sure that everything is safe and secure when we make these transitions.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we could, like, I think I do like that. I think if you have to set a date, in the world that I operate in, if you don't have a target, you don't ever hit it. And so, I think we do set a target date, and then we work together as a group, and we get to that target. And I think we could do that pretty easily as long as we know what we're trying to do and by when.
Yeah, I think like what Ty mentioned, like the call that we had last time when Amira was able to jump on, was just the functionality of how we do it, and if it's going to be done by fees on a week-to-week basis, and it's not necessarily an airdrop, but after the manual side of through the contract, if they can do that, those incentives get pushed to a staking contract that the individual can then claim at their leisure, then it's a little bit better, I think, for everybody overall. So.
Yeah, okay. I've been in some of these where you just all fee based, and you get rewards based upon your concentration, all those things, and like some of these platforms, they kind of gamify it. So it's another thing to consider for the TELx platform. We have like I don't know if we want to do like a leaderboard, but like you can do those type of things where you can see, like how you're doing live, and what your rewards are as they're accruing, all that kind of stuff. That requires a lot more development work, but just other cool things to think of for like TELx.
I was just going to say that could be part of additional analytics that maybe is part of a phase 2, phase 3 down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from a user perspective as well, the rewards page on the TELx site currently handles everything, and you can see how your rewards are accumulating, and you've got confidence that your liquidity is generating income for you, and it's all nice and tidy. As soon as we move to the different platforms V4, then that rewards information won't be current anymore. So there's an aspect of keeping the user informed on his performance, on their performances. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Will, Tim, Matt, you guys have any questions, comments, concerns on the last little bit that we've been talking about?
Yeah, no real concerns. I'm happy to push these two proposals through as they are, deprecate the two pools, use the incentives to go into the new pools, stepping up on the two that we're talking about. What Mike mentioned was quite interesting. That when you're looking at your concentration liquidity and setting your range, your price ranges, and that there could be a program or a bot that kind of does that for you. I think for me, one of the reasons I was a bit reticent to start with was that a lot of people are probably think this as well, I don't know. But the whole point of an AMM is that it's automated, and it's quite nice to actually sit back and not have to keep moving things about because it does it for you. So with the new V3 pools, if there were a bot or a program that does it for you, then that kind of takes away that concern that people might have, and certainly that I had, because I would have time to do that effectively. So if we can find out a bit more about how that would work, how you can get an automated bot to operate that and do the price changing, price movement for you. I've no idea where to look for that. So if anyone can help with that, that'd be great. And we can add that in to the education process that obviously is going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, let me add on to that. And Mike, if you have any insight, I'd love to hear it as well. But in the V4 pools with the introduction of hooks, Is a hook possible, or is programmatically where we can change that liquidity? Or I know you said there's bots that do it, but from my experience thus far in these concentrated pools, if I could have a program that automatically moved my range up or down depending on the underlying movement of those assets, we would concentrate that liquidity around whatever the current market rate is for those assets in that pool. And I think that'd be massively beneficial for anyone providing liquidity.
Yeah, and I don't know that we could like architect something like that for people, but there are programs out there like that. There's what network was it on? It was on Arbitrum. I was doing a V3 pool on Arbitrum on this platform, Uncle Joe's, or some weird thing. And but you could either like provide your liquidity, or you could just say, hey, we'll do it for you, and we'll keep you in range around whatever your price range you want to keep in. But you wouldn't get the same yield. Like it was like a bot that worked it was like a algorithm that worked for a fee. So you have to sort of give up some of your revenue, but then you wouldn't have to like keep it. I can't remember. I have to go back and look, but there's a lot of folks out in TELx land that could probably find these things faster than me. But there are things that you can employ, if you will, to do that.
Gotcha. All right, cool. I'll look into it more, but yeah. I think that would be. I don't know. These V3 pools are pretty cool. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys are enjoying learning about it, because they're pretty cool.
Yeah, it's all about just getting comfortable with it, and the more you look into it, the more you educate yourself, the better you're going to understand it. So, I think if we get these two proposals done, get the new pools fully up and running, and I kind of use them as a bit of a test, a live test, to see how it goes, so that we can then report back to the community and say how it's going, and this is how to do it, and do that education as well alongside it. And that would give people a bit more confidence to move forward if we decide to do, as you say, more migration from Balancer and doing the same again with other pools. But these two to start with and see how it goes is probably the best way forward, in my opinion.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think the light bulb moment for people will be when they realize that they can get the same yield that they're getting from a Balancer 80/20 pool with incentives, by providing 1/10 of the liquidity that they're providing right now. So that is the reality of the situation. You can get the same dollar amount of yield with far less liquidity. So then it gives you options to sort of, if you're worried about losing your tokens and then permanent loss on those things, that is the sort of light bulb moment that goes off. It's like, oh, well, I don't actually have to provide $100,000 worth of liquidity to get 10%. I can just provide $20,000 of liquidity and get 100%, and so that's why I like the flexibility of it. It allows people to think and control their environment a little bit better.
Sure, and I'm sorry about Andrew's X account being hacked. I'm not sure whether you got that back yet, but hope that's all right. But when we're talking about educating the community, maybe we should think about where we're going to do that, how we're going to do that. If we're going to concentrate it into one channel or others, just food for thought, really. But yeah, hope Andrew's account's all right.
Yeah, I think that educational piece ties into, again, the website redesign and some of the content that we want to put in there, right? So any educational stuff we have on V2, V3, V4, Uniswap Balancer, whatever it is, all of it should be facilitated through the TELx.network website. So I think that'll be, like I said, like a bigger picture, kind of let's tie everything all in together at the end of the day, and then take it from there.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Good. Okay. Mike, I just wanted to ask and clarify, and maybe get everybody else's opinion on this too. Just the point I brought up earlier of, maybe trying to broaden the amount of pools we have. Like if we deprecate, say, the DFX one, do we want to do a wrapped ETH and a USDC pool? on base? And if we deprecate the balancer ones, do we want to do an ETH and USDC pool on Polygon? Again, all of them being through Uniswap v4. Is everybody aligned with that, or?
I'm aligned. I'm okay with either one, because I think what'll ultimately end up happening, and we could start with one and then run those rewards for 2 months while we're getting the other one. Start with TEL ETH and then launch a TEL USDC pool, and then we have to sort of play the incentives game on a needs basis, where we put the incentives to pools that need more liquidity, right, and it would benefit from it. So yeah, I'm okay with either one, but I think we could, for simplicity's sake, we could start with one, or we could, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. Keep it simple to start with. Almost use them as test cases to see how they go. So yeah, start with the two proposals that we've got, and like for like with two new pools, if that's the way to go. But I think keep it simple. Yeah.
I asked a question on the forum, which is related, was I thought the current method of providing rewards to pools and having a fixed amount of rewards for the same rewards for every pool was kind of unfair based on the volume of liquidity that some pools did. And I was wanting to consider moving the way we provide rewards to rewards based on volume. If that had, and it was met with some resistance, which I accept, but if we move to that basis, then it removes the whole questions that we have about deprecating and reallocating rewards, because rewards would be based on the volume that the pools do. So I just kind of throw that in there to the discussion, that although I accept there was resistance, there are benefits that maybe some people aren't seeing in adopting a different way that the rewards are issued across the TELx platform. I'll just mention that and leave it there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ty. I think that will come with time, and probably more when we're into the new pools on the new chains. But yeah, that's just me thinking out loud. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I've definitely brought this idea up a couple times too, with just allocations of what we plan on doing. But maybe for the time being, Ty, let's put this one on the back burner until we, get everything up and running with these new pools, and maybe even when we get, Telcoin Network and that functioning with the bridging and all that kind of stuff. Because like what I was, more familiar with than what I was thinking was kind of like that vote escrow kind of model that I think some of us are familiar on like the DFX side of things. But, maybe let's, put that one on the back burner for now. But I agree. At the end of the day, when things get a little bit more mature, we need to have a better system than us just dictating which pool gets, a certain amount of incentives. And it's got to be a little bit more communal. But that's just my thoughts on it.
I do think that as a council, what I'd like to push us towards is to start thinking about the 200 million TEL and the currently $20 million that we are trying to use to benefit our platform with fresh eyes all the time, and not think so much about I think we need to be able to be liquid and be able to make decisions, on a bi-weekly basis, and slowly move the needle. We don't have to make radical, dramatic changes, but I think this is a nice way to take a third of our, start with a third of what we're doing, what we're kind of ingrained in, change it, learn from it, and then start looking at it with fresh eyes, being like, okay, why are we still incentivizing this telematic pool over here? Doesn't make any sense. We've seen the performance gains we get by doing other things, and just growing as a community and always trying to push ourselves to be better.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that, Mike. That's well put.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any other topics of conversation? I know we're a little bit over the hour mark, which we want to try to keep it around. But anything else anybody wanted to bring up or chat through? Going once, going twice. Okay. I'm just looking through some of the comments in the chat. I know Ari's not here anymore, but he had a question that I saw earlier. Is there any intention to open source parts of the website? I'm not sure kind of what he means by that, but maybe I could reach out to him in DMs and maybe get a little bit more context of what he's referring to, and then we can discuss later on. Okay. Is there any questions, comments from the remaining audience that we have? I see a good portion of the normal crew and some fellow council members as well. So we'll leave it open for another minute or so and see if anybody else has any questions, comments. If not, I think we could wrap it up. But while we wait, maybe just to understand next steps for each proposal. So just to summarize, Ty and myself, sounds like we're waiting to hear back from Grant and Leo just kind of on updates in terms of timing, cost, and all that kind of stuff for analytics and the single asset provision proposals. Will, it sounded like we were pretty locked in together for the Treasury safe, TELx Treasury safe. So if we can get that pushed to the forum as soon as possible, then we'll leave it up for maybe 4 or 5 days before we push it to Snapshot and get maybe our first formal TELx Council vote in. That'd be great before our next meeting. And then obviously, Mike, we had a pretty good conversation about the new pools, V3, V4, and the deprecation. So I'd say let's get those to the forum as well. Give the community a week or two to review, and then we can start pushing those to Snapshot as well. But in the meantime, Mike, maybe just follow up with the TAO to understand timing and what's involved, and from a budgetary perspective too, so we know kind of how much funds we have. And just speaking to the budget as well, we did have some preliminary conversations with Grant as well. I can't remember if it was part of what I forwarded over in our TELx Council group chat, but essentially we have the authority to sell that Telcoin whenever we see fit. If we want to have a certain percentage of those holdings in Telcoin or in USDC, or technically in any other asset that we deem necessary. So we have that function and ability to adjust those things, which will be facilitated through that 3 out of 6 multi-sig Treasury safe. So maybe down the road we can start talking about strategy on what we want to do with that budget, and if we want to, preliminary sell any of that TEL, to have it in a little bit more of a stable currency, then we do have the authority to do that without any proposals that are necessary. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that.
Sounds great. The safe is great. I use them all the time. I have multiple safes set up in for my own personal funds and whatnot, but they're really easy to use with Wallet Connect, and for swaps and trades via safe. You don't have to, it's very nice. If you guys haven't used them, I can help council members get up to speed on the safe stuff. But they're free to set up. It only takes about 5 minutes to set up a safe, and that's it.
Yeah, I personally never used a quick little user guide just to walk us through how to use them, just so we're all aware. But yeah, sounds like a plan.
I'd be interested in that as well, Mike. Maybe we can have a conversation separate.
Look at Joe out there arbitraging. Way to go, buddy.
He's taking that 10%.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. I mean, hey, it's there.
Hey, it pays to listen in. It pays to listen into these council calls.
That's right. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, I think we can shut this one down. And good chat, guys. And obviously, I'm sure we'll be chatting more in the chat. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks at March 5th, I believe.